All right, Simms Top 40 Quarterback Countdown Preview. This is time. I think we want to start with looking back at last year.
Yeah, cool.
And just seeing where all the chips were last year. You had Josh Allen as number 1. You had Patrick Mahomes as number 2. You had Justin Herbert as number 3. You had Joe Burrow as number 4. And I'm going to say, I'm going to look at this.
Say whatever
I'm going to say
want.
you, maybe the order has changed in the top 4.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say those, anyone who watched football last year, I think those were the top 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I don't think I actually, as you're sitting here saying that to me, right, outside of, the rabid Philadelphia Eagles fan base, I would say that through and through, 100%, I never heard anything different from anybody, at least in the football world, that didn't think those 4 were the top 4, right?
Yeah.
And like I always say, I always release these type of things, and when it comes out, I start to hear from people or whatever. So I heard from people at the time, but then, as the season goes on, I don't think anybody right now would disagree with what you just said there.
So let's set this up. We'll take another look at this as we go.
Yeah.
But let's set this up.
Yeah.
For those who may be new to the Simms Top 40 Quarterback Countdown, which started, 7 years ago now?
It started in, let's see, I guess it was the 2017 season, right? That is when I made the mistake of going on Dan Patrick and him asking me about the Jacksonville Jaguars and what's up with them, because they were all over the place. If anybody remember, they had this amazing defense. They'd dominate a game, and then they'd lose a close one. You'd be like, how did they lose to that team? And that's where I went on and went, well, because they have the 70th best quarterback in football, Blake Bortles. And, he was shocked. So that's where it manifested itself. And
so you were like, I will list all the quarterbacks who are better than Blake Bortles.
Well, then it became a news. So I said that.
Yeah.
And it caught on. To where, people were like, I was getting calls and they were, hey, people, we just wait. We don't know if we can have you on the radio. We heard your comment about, Blake Bortles and all that. We found that interesting. It became a thing. And then Lebitard and Stu Gatz, right? The great Dan Lebitard, he started to talk about it on his show. They kind of broke it as news. And then Stu Gatz, being the silly human that he is, went, I wonder who the other 69 are in front of him. And my buddy Adam Lefkoe from Bleacher Report was like, dude, Lebitard and all them are all talking about your Blake Bortles for 70 thing. You need to come up with a list. And I was like, the last thing I wanted to do. And I slowly but surely started to make a list, and it became a thing, right? But that was...
And Blake Bortles was probably 60.
I always feel bad for Blake Bortles. Listen, I was making a point about that. And listen, I'm not saying that I really didn't think Blake Bortles was kind of down towards that region, right? Mm-hmm. He was playing a style of football and everything there where I go, if you gave a lot of these other quarterbacks that were at 50 and 58 and whatever else, the opportunities that Blake Bortles got in his career, it wouldn't look that different. That's the point I was trying to make, right? And a few other points along with it. Mm-hmm. But it took on a life of its own. Yeah. And that's where I want to make a few tweaks on how I push this year, because this list was intended to rank the guys. Like that year, I was doing it during the season. I was going on every day in the end of December and January and giving a new guy. I did the final a few weeks after the Super Bowl. So it was kind of like, hey, here's the year, and here's how everybody stacks up on my list after watching the year. Yep. Now, I've gotten into a little of this the last few years of projecting a little bit more, right? And that's where I think, as from thinking about that, as I told you before the show, even going back and looking at some comments people make and stuff like that, that's to me where I think I get myself in trouble. It's where I leave myself open to be shit on by most of social media. And that's where I think I'm going to convey that message a little bit more this year, right? Some projection involved here.
Right.
But more about how it ended last year and, where I think the player is right now at this second, right?
Yep.
Not trying to go, I think this guy got with Sean Payton, and now he's going to look 10 spots better next year or whatever else, right? So, I think that's a little bit more of how I'm trying to view this.
So, to put it simply, this is the quarterbacks if they're on just a average team, neutral team, neutral play caller. You don't even know the play caller. You don't even know his teammates.
Right, exactly.
This is if we had a quarterback draft for 1 year and 1 year only.
Yeah.
This is not taking him for this year and you have him for the next 5 years. No, this is just you have a quarterback for 1 year, and then at the end of this year, we're going to redraft the quarterbacks again, so you don't even get to keep them.
Now, there's some context within that, too. That's where and see, this is where it's like, okay, so all right, just off of that, let me just throw an example out there.
Sure.
Right? There's some guys here that, okay, last year was a little bit of a down year, but there was like 8 years before that where you go, that was phenomenal. It's all pro. It's amazing level, right? And then we have a guy who jumped on the scene last year out of nowhere, and had some good stats, and they won some games. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go, oh, he's better than that player right now at this moment.
Yeah.
Did he have a better year statistically and do some things better at this year or whatever, and were some injuries maybe involved with this player or whatever? But that does not mean you automatically get put above. There is a little bit of assessment of the body of work that you put in there too, right?
Well, exactly,
right.
And you would want that because you're taking a quarterback for this year only. You would have to gauge whether that last year for this one guy was going to be indicative of what he's going to do this year, or if you trust more the body of work of this other guy, even though it may be diminishing.
Yes,
for sure.
Exactly right. So that goes into this as well. But yeah, I think too, within the timing of we do it and we release it in June, I think too many people have run with, wait, this is how this is look this year coming up. And I want to go, yeah, I listen, I'm good at predicting some stuff, but I ain't Nostradamus, all right?
Yeah.
And I can't, tell you everybody's jump and what they're going to do. I can within reason, sure. But could I take the, jump of like, oh, yeah, I expect young guy who's going in from year 2 to year 3 to be a little bit better? Sure. But I'm not going to go like over the top with that type of thing and try to use some logic that way.
There have been a whole lot of quarterbacks changing teams, which is really not going to be a part of this evaluation, but it will matter in how these quarterbacks produce and look, and how they looked last year maybe.
It's the hardest year ever, Ahmed. I've never had a harder time.
Why do you say that?
I think it's because there was up and down. There was 1 year hits last year. There was injuries involved. There's a pretty good lower class, or what I would say like a pretty good class of backup quarterbacks in football right now, where as I showed you before the show started, like I can usually go, okay, wait, here's the 32 starters. Here's the 10 or 12 guys that are basically in the running for the 8 spots left over, right?
Yep.
And this year, I go through my process really the same way, and I got done with that process and went, oh, shit, I got like 22 guys. I got like 50-something guys where I went, whoa, this many guys, and now I got to cut it down to 40, right? And that's where I found it to be harder than ever this year, let alone the middle class of the NFL starting quarterbacks is always hard.
So you think there are 15 or so quarterbacks that may be worthy of top 40 that you thought may be worthy of top 40, and then they just kept adding up and adding up.
Right, and you just I got to nitpick, and that's where I have to, I of course, assess the situation. I put on some film on my computer sometimes and go, wait, this is close between this guy and that guy. Let me watch a game or 40 throws or whatever and just see what thoughts percolate in my brain that way. But, yeah, I definitely had a harder time with that part of this process this year.
Quarterbacks you may not have to consider.
Yeah.
Well, Tom Brady, for sure.
Right.
We don't have that dust up anymore. That's one thing you won't have to sweat every year.
I don't have to have Tom Brady at like 8 or 9 or 7, and everybody go, why is he not in the top 5?
Yeah, the first time in NFL history a 50-year-old quarterback has been in the top 10, and you're granting him that, and be like,
he's 45 last year, and I made him the 8th quarterback in football. People still were mad.
Matt Ryan doesn't look like he'll be in the NFL. Carson Wentz, we don't know. He was 19 last year. Well, so Matt Ryan was 14. Tom Brady was 8. I don't know about, especially Tom Brady and Ryan, but Carson Wentz, who knows where he's going to be?
Well, that's the other thing. That's what I mean. There's guys like him where you just go, where does it go? Talent-wise, he's one of the top 40 quarterbacks in football, but leadership-wise, what he is in the locker room, careless with the football, is he a top 40 guy there? I don't know. Those things play into this whole thing there, right? Is he the guy you'd really want to be your backup quarterback in most situations? I don't know if a lot of teams would want that. There's a reason he's still out there in the street. So, yeah, it's guys like him that make things hard here for me too.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater at 38, still without a team.
Exactly, right? Played a lot, we know that, but he's also, too, injury history, all this. So there's another curveball involved in this.
So I mentioned the guys who have changed teams.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, he was 5 last year for you, going to the Jets.
Right.
Obviously, Derek Carr, he was 11 last year, going to the Saints. Baker Mayfield, since you made the rankings, went from Cleveland to Carolina to the Rams, now with Tampa. Jimmy Garoppolo has gone to the Raiders. He was 20th last year for you. Marcus Mariota, I think another player that you were kind of hinting on here. As
exactly.
Tough to rank. He was in Atlanta and now with the Eagles as a backup. Sam Darnold over in San Francisco. He was 32 last year. And finally, Gardner Minshew, who was at 37 last year, now is in Indianapolis. Now, the changing of teams shouldn't affect the ranking for you that much, right? It really, it's team independent, these rankings.
Right.
The only thing I'll say is how it could affect the ranking for them is if these other teams ask them to do things that are different and they succeed in that, right? Like more evidence of, like, if we see, Baker Mayfield go to Tampa and he's playing, he's all of a sudden no risk it, no biscuit, and we're like, oh, wow, this is the best Baker Mayfield we have seen. He's able to display some of his talents. Well, that may show up in your ranking next year.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's where it gets tricky. See, and that's where I think it's also even kind of screwed me in some years, where I go, oh, this is a match made in heaven. This is going to work. So let me project this guy just a little higher.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't work out and you look like an idiot, right? To where, that's where, that's where I'll have to describe, like, hey, there's some potential here for this guy to make a big jump for next year. But from where we stand right now at this moment, I cannot put him there. But I could see him making the jump. And those are things I think I need to clarify. But, yes, to your point, these are the things that they make it tough. They really do. You mentioned a few guys there where I just go, yeah, exactly. I don't know where to put them, how to gauge it, right? We have a crop of rookie quarterbacks where, I like to put the guys at the top of the first round in the top 40, right? And I believe that's where they are, too, as far as their talent. There's that. There's the unproven Jordan Love, Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, right? Where you'd like to go, wait, at least the 32 starters should be in the top 32, right? There's a part of me that sometimes thinks, well, who am I to say this guy is in the top 32 if one of the teams is ready to anoint him as one of the starting 32, right?
Yeah.
But yet you look at it and go, well, there's some guys at 33 or 40 that I can't put Desmond Ridder in front of that guy yet, right?
Sure.
So that's where it also gets, troubling. It messes with my mind. It messes with my football. Like, hey, I want to respect the Falcons, and they made him his starter, so let's make him one of the 32 best. But that's not the case here.
Doesn't mean he's going to be in your top 40 necessarily. We've seen that in the past.
We have seen that.
No,
You're
I think the big thing, like you mentioned, is that a player could improve, and then he goes up in your rankings next year. But I think it's also to point out the players that you think are in your rankings and you stand by your ranking, but their stats, their numbers are going to look better than your ranking because they are in a perfect situation and they have good weapons around them and they have a good play caller as their head coach or offensive coordinator. And so
you're talking about Tua, basically, right?
I'm getting ready for the Tua backlash.
There's that conversation, though, but I think that's okay. But you're right. That's part. It
doesn't mean you're going to change your ranking next year because you still think the things that produced some of those numbers was some of Tua,
sure,
but also what was around.
Exactly. Yeah,
we're stripping what's around.
Exactly right. And thank you for phrasing it that way, because I think that is, you're right. Sometimes, and that's where it also lends to, the criticism and whatever else, is people just look at numbers or wins and losses, and they go, well, that guy should be higher or whatever. And I want to go, wait, but you don't think if we put these other 15 guys I have in front of them that they wouldn't be just as good, right? I mean, we really, and again, I'm not trying to say anything about where Tua is ranked in all this and anything that way.
He's outside the top 40. We just want to throw that out there now.
But I think that's like, yes, it's part of this conversation. And like you said to start it off, we're all on a practice field. We're all running the same offense. And we all have the same coach.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I have to continue to talk to myself.
And it really takes nothing away from those quarterbacks like Tua for executing, right, in those situations, right? You still have to do it. You still have to get it done. Yes, maybe other quarterbacks could have similar results, but you still got to do it.
No,
and
there's still a lot of merit to
do it.
Exactly right. And he did it. And he did a lot of awesome things last year. And he certainly will be higher on the list. That's for sure.
6 quarterbacks on your top 40 signed big-time extensions in the offseason. First, it was Kyler Murray in July, actually. Riley, number 12. So that was right after your rankings came out.
Yep.
And then Russell Wilson in September, he was at 7. Geno Smith at 33. He got that in March. Daniel Jones got that big extension. He was at 21 last year for you. Jalen Hurts at 25 for you last year. Got his big extension in April. And then just recently, Lamar Jackson, who was at 10 for you. The Ravens, we don't want to let him go. He got that big-time extension. So let's bring up the top 40 again from last year.
Right.
A chance to get a victory lap in here.
Yeah.
Which ranking are you most proud of, or a couple of rankings are you most proud of?
Gosh, I don't know if I'm, I don't know if there's one that I'm most proud of or anything.
I got one.
Yeah, what is it? Go ahead.
Even though you could make the argument he could have been higher.
Right.
Geno Smith at 33. I think when you made that ranking, I think most people would have said that's ridiculously too high for a guy like Geno Smith.
Thank you very much. You're right. That's definitely one that I should be proud of. I think you're right within that. I'm always proud that I stand my ground with the Kirk Cousins of the world, right? Kyler Murray at 12 last year. I remember feeling man, I'm gonna feel a little dicey about putting him that low, But I think realistically, with how he played in the year, and of course he got injured and all that, it's where he should have been or whatever, right? So I guess I think you're right. The Geno Smith one's probably the one I look at to go. That does make me feel good because you're right. I did take a lot of crap for that.
And Jimmy Garoppolo at 20, you have basically, since they were in the Super Bowl, he has been in the same spot. Matt Casey was here, and just every year you just start with 20.
19, 20, 21, he's hit them all there.
But you've held steady depending if the team's great, not great, if he's performing, not performing, you've just held steady, and I think that speaks to the whole exercise. Well, that's the perfect
example of what you're talking about. Exactly right. Where I go, it's good, but let's just not look, the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, so he's got to be one of the 4 best guys. No. Again, I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that we put in San Francisco, and you'd go, oh, no, they're better. They're better than they were without Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's where it is. And then, again, too, you got guys like Jalen Hurts and Daniel Jones where I had questions about, right? In different ways, too.
Yeah.
Right? Where you get into Daniel Jones 21 where I saw talent, but I just said, man, they got to do something to help him out so we can all see the talent, right? To where we can all see it. And he has the ability with the support system around him to show us everything he has to offer. So they finally did that last year. So he's going to be significantly up. Of course he is. Jalen Hurts was another one where, like I said before, there's potential here, right? But I had to see it to believe it at first. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, think about where we were the year before. That's where it was annoying about that conversation. I know it was low, but literally we went into the playoffs with the biggest question about the team was the quarterback. Can he throw the ball?
Yeah.
But then people wanted me to make him a top 12 quarterback. And I just want to, how? Yeah. How does that match up to what you're saying to me?
We were coming off their playoff loss
against
to Tampa,
the Bucs,
right? Where they just got blown out and they could do nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
And they changed their offense midway through the year from what they were doing and got into something that fits him better, right? But obviously he improved in a lot of areas, and he took that opportunity, and of course he's another guy that's going to jump way up there.
So we also self-scout thyself.
Of course.
And so you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what rankings do you regret the most? With the caveat that, when we make the predictions, we're making them in the moment, and of course things are going to change.
Yeah, no, I mean, I never would have saw the Matt Ryan fall.
Yes.
Right? That was a shocking one to me. Where
it was almost immediate, like week 1 or 2, you were calling him feeble already.
Right? I mean,
and I was like, Matt couldn't listen to the podcast. Careful.
It was like we were in some preseason. I think the Bills preseason game.
That's right.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I know they're still working on things, but I don't even like the way it looks. Right? A little like I said about Matt Corral. I was just like, I don't like the way it looks. We'll see how it goes here. So that one was certainly one that pops up to me when I look at it. Other ones,
Tannehill 15.
I'm okay with Tannehill at 15 from last year. I am. It's again, he got injured, right?
He did.
You see how, they're a much better football team when he's out there playing. So I don't know. I guess if I was going to self-scout myself,
Carson Wentz at 19
was too high, certainly. I think I played into the hype of just the year before too much. Zach Wilson at 22. I'm certainly going to take a beating on that. But the way the 2022 season ended and the way he played, I thought, he looked like he was in that realm and ready to take another jump. But obviously fell off, and he will fall off in a major way that way. So I guess that those are the ones that I look at more than anything. I don't know, Ahmed. It's hard for me to reassess or look back to.
It's hard to remember where we were at that time.
Yeah, with your thought and where you were. Right.
That's the bad thing about predictions too, and I've heard a couple people say this, is that when you're right, they almost seem obvious, right? It's like because a lot has happened and we've seen it now. It's just like Josh Allen, right?
Right.
It's like everyone's like, okay, although maybe it's trending in the other way now. I feel like there's more hate now coming towards Josh Allen, but for a while there, and last year when they were in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes, and then you had Josh Allen number one, there are a lot of people who's like, I can see that over Patrick Mahomes, which a year before would have been crazy.
Right.
But when you made that statement that he was going to be awesome, it was at a time when no one believed you, and now it seems like, of course, he's top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, top 5 quarterback, and now listen, you're right. He's being challenged now by people thinking, oh, did Herbert pass him? Did Joe Burrow pass him? And of course, everybody expected the Bills before the season last year to be in the Super Bowl, and they didn't get there. People just want to blame Josh Allen. We know there's more issues to that. But yeah, it's a fun exercise. It really is. And like I said, I'm going to continue to sell it a little bit more this year as I go through it, and I'm getting there. I'm not totally finalized yet. I feel pretty good about like my top 20. I'm pretty good in that department there. Like I said, the moving parts between 21 and 40 are different this year with some of the young guys, unproven guys, whatever else, make things interesting. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit more, and I'm going to continue to frame it as that of, where it stands right now at this moment and not be too much into projection, because I think that's where I get over by the people who don't really listen to the context.
Sure. Or listen to the pod, because I think you're right. You're
right.
right. A lot of people think it's a career achievement list or
exactly
it's not
right.
that. Nothing with contracts or anything like that. All right, so we will start this on Monday. And we are starting from the bottom. And now we're here.
Started at the bottom,
top.
now we're here.
And we're going to go to the top,
Yeah.
Unlike the draft rankings where we went top to bottom, we're going to go bottom to top.
Bottom
so 40 through 35
I think
or whatever.
We're going to do some tiers here, too.
We're going to do tiers this year for the first time ever.
Yep.
Introducing that.
Right.
And when we do have these discussions on the quarterbacks, too, it'll be more than just where they are in this ranking. It'll also be a bigger discussion of their team and what's around them and maybe what's changed. And so it'll be a holistic discussion on each quarterback.
Yeah, all right. We'll talk about this is where they are right now, but this is, we'll just dissect the team and how they fit into that team, and yes, what's the potential for this player this year with some of the new pieces or coaches that are around him.
Yep.
Yo, thanks for watching, homies. It's the off season, but there's no off season for us here at Unbuttoned. Me, Ahmed Fareed, we're going to hit all the stories. So hit subscribe for us, okay? We got a ton coming up. My draft prospect rankings, my Simms top 40 quarterback countdown, and videos of me and NFL QBs playing catch and talking about their development and mechanics. Again, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe. Peace out, homies. See you soon.